G'day guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to what will be the final video in this DIY rear drawer build series. We're going to be carpeting these drawers up. We're going to be finishing them off, putting the final touches on them and making them all pretty and Insta-worthy as they should be. So I've got myself some black carpet that I'm going to put on these. I'm going to show you guys how to do it because it's not that hard of a job, but sometimes it's good just to see how it's done before you give it a go yourself. There are a few little final touches that I want to do to the drawers just to sort of finish off little bits and pieces that I haven't got around to yet. So I will let you know about them as they are necessary. Most of them are little things like, you know, closing gaps up or little, you know, taking a little bit extra off the trims and that sort of stuff, but very minor stuff. The drawers are pretty much finished. They're functional. I've been camping with them a few times and really love them, but having some carpet on there will just really finish it off, and I'm so keen to see what they look like, and I'm sure you guys are too. So stay tuned, let's jump straight into it and get these drawers sorted, hey? Cheers! So if you're looking to do this job at home, these are the sort of things you're going to be using to do this job. Obviously you're going to need your things you want to carpet. So these are various panels that I've pulled off the drawers, either out of the box or on the drawer itself. Remove all your fixtures, anything that you don't want to get carpeted over, obviously, and figure out where exactly you're going to carpet as well. There's some areas in my drawer system where I can't have carpet. There's just simply not enough space and I need to allow for that tolerance there. So once you figure all that out, it sort of makes it a little bit easier. You're obviously going to need your carpet. I've got some black carpet here that I've picked up from Bunnings. This is like car trimmers sort of carpet. It's not marine carpet for a number of reasons. Two main ones being it costs a hell of a lot less, so it's not as expensive. I think the marine carpet I was looking at was nearly $80 a meter. And number two, the marine carpet didn't come in black. It only came in like ribbed or like grey or speckled or blue, and I didn't want any of that for my drawers. And the third thing, well, now I think of a third thing, the marine carpet, I tried it with my previous drawer set and I wasn't happy with it because it was much thicker, and when you went to wrap it around the corners, it didn't bend quite as nicely, and when it did bend, it left a big crease, whereas this one seems to make a much smaller radius and it still looks really, really nice. So we've got our carpet. I've got a big roll of it back here as well. You're going to need your glue. So this one here is Fast Grip. I use this glue. It works really well. There are different glues out there you can use. Pick one that's going to work best for you, and if you're in doubt, grab some advice from a professional. Not me, a professional. But this is what I use, and if you want to use the same, it's going to do a good job. You're going to need something to clean it up. This on the back here, it states you need xylene, which is a chemical that you would use to clean this down. I couldn't find it anywhere, and for what I could find, it was like 20-litre drums, and it was hugely expensive, and I don't need that much. So after a little bit of advice digging, I found that just my mineral terps is going to do exactly the same job. Well, 99% of the job anyway. Paintbrush, I've just got a 2-inch paintbrush that I'm going to be using. You're going to need something to cut your carpet. Stanley blade, nice sharp blade. You are going to be obviously blunting it. So make sure you have a few extra blades as well. I've also found that scissors sometimes help with little jobs, or if you just need to sort of nick a little section, having a good strong pair of scissors. And obviously something to measure everything with. So I've got a big steel rule and a smaller one, which I can use for obviously running my Stanley knife against. So that's pretty much everything. We are going to jump into carpeting these now. The first step of all this is going to be to actually cut your carpet to the sizes you want to use. You can be a little bit over, you can sort of overestimate with this part because you can always trim it down later. You don't want to be having to try and add carpet. So where possible, try to sort of overcompensate rather than undercompensate. So let's get this out of the way. We'll get the carpet on here and we'll start cutting up ready for these pieces. One more thing is obviously you're going to want a nice sort of big flat surface you can use to do this sort of work. You also want it to be like fairly clean as well, because obviously I prefer to work with the carpet upside down because you sort of are able to sort of cut and mark things much easier than trying to sort of do it through the carpet. So if you can, get yourself a nice big table like this one, make sure it's nice and clean. Otherwise you'll be picking stuff out of the carpet for years to come. So we've got our panels. Well, let's start with this one. Let's start with a nice easy one. So this one here is pretty much a rectangle, and that's how I'm going to cut it. I know that it sits like that on the car. On this side, I don't really have a lot of room to play with, so I'm just going to sort of carpet that 20mm on the side. I can't do it on this top corner because there's going to be stuff there, but I do want to carpet around here. So I'm going to sort of figure that out accordingly. Now when you have the carpet, and you're going to obviously have it hanging over the other side to glue it on, when that sort of makes it all looks nice and seamless from the front, I would probably allow about 30 to 50 mil to sort of overhang it by, so make sure you allow that to sort of fold over. The corners, you'll sort of figure out how you want to do those, but basically allow for about 30 mil to get over the top, plus the thickness of whatever it's going to go over, so for my case 12 mil. So really I've got to allow for about 62 mil of material to go past where I'm going. So once you're happy with where it is, you can mark it out if you want to. In my instance, this line's going to work quite well. If you're good with a Stanley blade, you can literally just draw it down and make yourself a straight line. Otherwise, mark it out, grab yourself a steel rule, and away you go. So once you're happy with your location and that you've got enough overhang and all that sort of stuff, mark it out, grab yourself a pen or a texture or something. I'm going to, where's my steel rule? Allow for whatever that distance is on there, which is about 1 inch or so. Yep. So I'm going to mark out about 1 inch from there. If you're allowing yourself to have a lot of carpet like I've got, then obviously you've got a lot of stuff to play with. Relatively, like cost per meter, it's fairly cheap. I think this one was about 40 bucks a meter, but that gives you a lot of carpet to play with. There we go. Now we've got that marked out, we can start cutting it. This table, I don't mind getting a few scratches in, so I'm just going to cut it straight on the table. If you're worried about scratching whatever table surface you're on, put it on the ground to cut it, because you're going to leave a big scratch mark in it otherwise. So now that cut, that's pretty much ready to glue. What I would highly recommend you do, and this is something I've had to learn the hard way, is wait until you've got all your pieces of carpet cut and ready to go. Wait until everything's ready to go, and then do a big gluing session. And basically what that means is that you're not going to have to be dipping your paintbrush in and out of glue and waiting for it to dry, etc., etc. Much better to do it all in a big batch. So now that we've got that one done, I'm going to put that one aside. Move on to the next one.
6.5 hours later.
Right, so now that they're all cut, we can actually get to gluing all these in. Like I said, it's best to do them as sort of a batch rather than doing them singularly, because it'll just take you forever, and you'll constantly be having to sort of buy a new brush, because the glue does eventually just clog the bristles up on the brush, but that's okay. So I'm immediately, ask me how many times I've not done this, get my cleaning solution ready for my brush. So I've just got a little salsa jar here. I'm going to put some mineral terps in. Now with the glue, it is highly recommended that you apply glue to both surfaces. So you want it obviously to the timber and also to the carpet. You then need to wait until they're tacky, and sort of that's a real sticky sort of feel on them. Then put them together. I find that, especially if I'm doing it like this, by the time I've applied glue to this one and this one and this one, that's already tacky by the time I've finished that. So it means that sort of your work, you're not sort of standing around doing nothing for so long. So I'm basically going to get to cranking this glue out. This glue is really thick, and it's surprising how much you do need to use to sort of cover the area you want to cover. So what I'll do is I'll apply glue to everything on this side and sort of just work my way that way. And then by the time I've finished here, I'm ready to put that all together and get to actually sticking everything together. So you do need to be fairly liberal with it on the carpet, because it gets into the sort of fibers, I suppose. And I'm always conscious that I need to get more glue into the corners, because that's usually where it'll start lifting. It is worth noting this stuff gives off a hell of a huff. It will probably make you high, and this is not that sort of channel, so I need a bit more airflow in here, I think. Covered, we can start gluing these together. Be mindful of where you want your overlaps to be, so where you want to wrap it around and where you don't. On this particular panel, I think I want it to not wrap over that and to wrap over that. So I'm going to go like this. So because this is a nice flat panel, it's quite easy just to push it against the table. If you're doing this in the car, or if it's a different panel, then obviously you need to be quite firm with how you're pushing it down. Now what you can do is start to roll the corners up. So what you want to do here is basically start from sort of the most middle point you can. So on this surface about here. And what I'm doing is I'm really trying to make a crease with my hand by pushing the carpet into the timber. There we go. So that's on there nicely now. And what I can do is then I wrap over the middle section, and this sort of holds it all into place, if that makes sense. Now you will find with some setups, like in this, it's a gentle curve, so I'm not going to be able to get a nice even sort of fold. grab my scissors and make a few cuts. Sort of there, and I reckon about there. And what I can do now is make sure this bit's nice and flat. And there we go, that's one panel done. Basically all those bits on the back there you can touch up when you want to, but it's mainly getting that front section to work. You can add glue, you can use nails, which is sometimes what I like to do, like large headed nails or whatever they're called, to hold the carpet down to the timber, or staples if you've got a staple gun. That's a really good way of doing it, but I'm very happy with that. Let's get these other ones done. Right, the drawer faces. We'll do the inside of the drawers in a minute, but the drawer face I think is worth sort of showing while we're all sort of ready to go. Obviously we need to remove everything that we need to remove from the front there, so this red vision system is going to have to come out, and the latch as well, and then we can sort of size everything up and start to put the face of the drawer on. Oh no, it doesn't fit. We'll have to cut a hole. So what I'm doing here is using the edge of the knife like that vertically, and I can actually start to cut outwards until I hit the edge. So that way I know I'm not going to go over the top of it. Check on this side, does the same thing there. And what I can do now is I can start to fill out the corners. So just so you can see what I mean. So once I plonk that back in, you can't actually see the edge of the carpet where I've cut it. Same with that. And that looks really neat now. Right, so our next job on this very, very chilly morning is going to be to carpet the interior of the drawers. I've pulled this one out to show you, so I can show exactly how to do it. The other one's a bit more complicated with some dividers, and it's got some moving parts and bits and pieces, so that's going to be a time-consuming job that I'll just do on the side, and honestly, once you figure out the fundamentals, it'll be easy enough to do that sort of thing yourself, given you have enough time and carpet to redo everything. But with this one, we have two options with how we're going to do it. We are either going to cut out all the individual panels, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the base 5. You'd have 5 panels there, you'd cut out all the squares and then sort of glue them on. You end up with sometimes them not being quite square, or with where the carpets meet up, it can show a bit of a join. So I find it best to try to do it all in a single piece of carpet and then sort of like cut out all your grids and everything. Obviously with something like this, you're going to need a large square to start with. However, the next step down from that is just choosing a direction to do a run in and then paneling the rest. So for me, I've got a 1 meter wide bit of carpet here. I reckon I'm going to go that way. So essentially what I'm going to do is measure out the width that I need, which is the inside measurement inside the drawer there. I'm then going to figure out the length I need, which is going to be down one side, across the base, up there, 12 mil on either side for our ply, and then about 50 mil on either side to allow the carpet to wrap around and come down to glue on that outside edge. It just really neatens things off that way, as long as you've got the room and the space there for everything to sort of move and slide. But it's also easy enough to cut carpet away if for whatever reason there's too much of it. It's much harder to add carpet later on and make it look nice. So definitely worth a bit of forethought beforehand to figure out exactly what you're going to do. Once I've done all that, it's easy enough to panel these outside edges. I've actually got offcuts that are sort of a good size that I can cut down. I don't have to ruin a big roll of carpet like this to get some small little panels. And they should meet up really nicely on the inside there too. It's also worth noting that it's going to be the inside of a drawer. It's going to be filled with stuff. And while you want the finish to be 110%, if it's not, don't cry about it. It's not the end of the world. Just keep backing gear in there, or don't show people the inside of your drawers. Just say they're carpeted, which, you know, may or may not work. So we're going to get stuck into it. You guys can watch a time lapse of it because it's just time consuming and just me doing lots of measurements and cutting. And I will do you a bit of a run around at the end. And just like that, I've got 40 minutes of footage condensed down into, what, 20 seconds? How's that, future Todd? Did I get it right? never any good at getting this stuff right. So look, that's pretty much it. You've seen how I've done it. Basically, just getting the carpet to sort of line up and sort of work it into the corners of wherever you need to go. You can always trim carpet off. For example, if you make it too wide, for example, in these corners, just take a sharp Stanley knife, run it through that corner, and you can actually take a little slither off and make it fit really nicely. It is important with gluing to put as much pressure on as you can when you're trying to get the two surfaces to bond. So for example, going over this, I'm really trying to press the carpet into the base of the drawer to make sure that it's going to stick. And that's especially important around the corners as well, because you want that carpet to sort of form and curve and go around these corners. All these corners I've sanded so they're rounded. That really helps with getting the glue to adhere to a rounded curve rather than to a 90-degree bend, because the carpet's not going to want to do that 90-degree bend, it's going to want to make a curve. So if you can sand the corners around so they're nice and smooth and rounded, it's going to make your job a hell of a lot easier. And you can see here, like even where the carpet's sort of coming over the edge, this doesn't have to be like a completely like clean finish. Well, in my instance, it doesn't, because it's going to be in the drawers the whole time. If not, then you're going to see this big ugly rail there. You can't have glue, like carpet all the way up to the rail, and etc, etc. So you're going to see some timber and bits and pieces, but that's just part and parcel of building your own drawers. The front section here, I had to allow for cutouts for the latched open and close, and also for the red vision plugs to pass through to get to the actual screen sitting on the front. The rear, again, doesn't really matter, because you're not ever going to really see it once the drawers are in place. And the only consideration I have now is when the drawers close completely up to the backing of the I suppose full shape of the drawers, the shell, is there enough space for that extra 5mm of carpet to be in there? And that's the thing, is I reckon there's going to be, but if there's not, you can always just trim at that top edge there, make sure that the timber is as flush as it can be, and leave that nice sort of curled top on top there. With my particular drawers though, it's not really going to matter too much, because the drawers don't 100% come out all the way. There'll be that little bit left sort of in the actual shell, I suppose you'd call it. So that's pretty much it. I think now we're going to carpet the rest of the drawer system up. Putting the carpet on these is really just like the icing on the cake, and it just really finishes off the whole look of it. I mean, you look at the drawer face on this thing, like that with the latch and everything else, it just makes it look so much more professional, and hides all the nail heads hanging out of the woodwork, which is always nice. So yeah, I'm going to get started on the rest of the drawers. I'll show you a little bit of that. It's basically all this just done in a slightly different fashion, but you'll watch it and see what I mean. And I think next time I speak to you, the drawers will be 100% done. Check that out, that looks wicked. That black carpet has just really set off the whole back of the 200 series. It even matches the nice black carpet that comes from factory as well, which is nice. All the black sort of accessories I've added, the handles, the little pulls and everything like that, even the latches and the red vision system, because you know, I totally spec that in black. Everything just complements everything else really, really nicely. I'm super happy with it. I've added some little infill panels into where the fridge sort of section is, and I think that just ties everything off really nicely. I've also added a little charging station up here, which I'll go through in the next video. which is just going to be, the next video is basically going to be a full sort of showcase rundown on the whole drawer system, and I'll show you all the functions and things that it can do. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be really cool. I've also added, and this is something I'm questioning, I've put it on and I really like it, but I don't know if it's going to be the best thing long term, which is this timber trim up the top here. So this is essentially just some like timber, like right angle, which you can buy. Well, I bought it from Bunnings and it was about $7 for a 2-meter section. I've then cut it into the lengths that it needs to go and then stained it with a darker color because it did come in just a pine look. And I think it really sets off, it just sort of really neatens up the trim of everything. There's a few areas which it does show up, that there's obviously some height differences, like in here. There's a bit of carpet I need to trim down to get that to sit flush and other bits and pieces. But on the whole, I'm really happy with how that's turned out. I also wanted it to protect the edge. So on here, like especially with the height of these drawers, I'm going to be lifting stuff up and sliding things across this edge to put on top of here. And I think this is going to be a bit of a, I suppose, more of a sacrificial kind of edge rather than a hard wearing thing, because I would much rather replace what is probably about $4 worth of timber every 12 months or something like that. It is only nailed down, so it's easy enough to pull out and replace if I need to, versus getting like wears in the carpet on the corners here and needing to recarpet the whole thing because it looks like trash. But time will tell whether this was a good idea. What do you think? Do you think it looks good? Do you think I should keep it? I've seen there's like, you know, steel and alloy trims you can get for these, but I'm not a huge fan of those. So look, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm interested to hear them. So thank you very much for watching this episode. It's been the final build episode for these rear drawers. They are now finished. It has been a massive project. I've been collecting parts for this drawer system for now, the last probably 12 months, I'd say. And it's really nice to be able to actually have all the parts done and dusted and on the car, which is nice. And now I've just got a bunch of really nice spaces that I can actually use. I can go out camping with a full drawer system. There's water here, there's a fridge here, there's full 12 volt. There's just everything I could ever want. So really, really happy with how this has turned out. I've got a few more mods coming up. One is quite a big one for the 200 series, and it's going to be the first stepping stone towards making it a real super tourer and to make it a little bit more like the Prado. Thanks again for watching. Please check out the merch store, which is I'll put in the link down below. Also consider signing up to Patreon, which is a massive help to me making these videos. If you want to see more content like this, feel free to check that out and see whether Patreon is something that is right for you. Thank you everyone. I'm going to catch you in the next episode. Cheers.